Spin it again.
It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena.
You know what, I've heard people call, and I kind of like it, the era that we're in, the post-truth kind of era.
And lately there's been a lot of coverage in the real news about the growing and booming business of creating fake news.
Well, I don't know, maybe he was watching CNN fake news. What do you think?
You are fake news. Sir, go ahead.
Let us return to the fight. This battle is far from over.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another morning edition. That word I said right there, by the way, was morning edition of Real News. 4/22 is the date today, Sean. I can't remember if it's Tuesday or Wednesday.
You just keep telling yourself that was
certain.
morning. You just keep on telling yourself that.
I'm going to keep on telling myself. I figured if you stick to your story long enough, Sean, it eventually becomes true. That's at least what I've been told, man. If you say the thing long enough, convince enough people, it doesn't matter what actually happened. It just matters what people believe. You know what I'm saying, buddy? It is a Wednesday morning edition of Real News. My name is Mr. Henry. David Sean Thompson on the screen beside me right there. Big show, packed show today, as you'll see in the headlines. Knoxville Facebook group making sure no one goes hungry. Talking about some Harvard issues going on, saying, hey, full and 24/7 control of your children may be a dangerous thing. And Trump has a new campaign ad that is an absolute must-see. An absolute must-see.
Oh, man, it is the most brutal thing I've ever seen. It's as brutal as anything I've seen in American politics in my lifetime.
It's
just to tease it, if you haven't seen it, I think it's worse than Lock Her Up. I think it's actually worse because Lock Her Up was kind of obviously hyperbole in some cases. I mean, some people were actually like, lock her up, but it was kind of like hyperbole, like she did something wrong. This is a solid critique. This is real. But anyway, it's a hardcore campaign ad. Legit. Hey, too, before we go too far, I want to really thank Sherry Voluntary for being on the show yesterday.
Oh, absolutely.
And then even though they're not exactly connected, they're kind of connected because me and Grant are involved. I want to thank everybody who came out to the town hall last night. It was really, really fun. If you missed it, that's too bad. You'll have to catch the next one so you can say you were cool. And we'll actually have it on Friday with Mayor Glenn Jacobs talking about unlocking the economy. Very apropos right now.
Yeah, and speaking of that next one on Friday there, you'll actually see in the show notes section this morning. This is what I'm starting to do every morning as well. Directly under the title of the show every single morning here, you'll see that link for Evernote. If you click that Evernote link, it actually goes to a much more properly formatted version of the show notes. And the second thing down, you can actually see the Zoom link for the Glenn Jacobs event. And you're going to want to sign up for that one. This one is more pertinent as we get closer to the end of the week here. Knox County Mayor Glenn Jacobs was actually asked by Governor Lee to put together a type of proposal for how to reintroduce or reopen the economy. All right, so this is obviously pertinent to East Tennessee, but it'll be applicable for across the state because part of what Glenn Jacobs put together is going to be used to, comprise the overall state plan of how we reopen the economy. And it's very practical things about what restaurants look like and can we go bowling? What do gyms look like? When does all this open? The time frame? How does that affect your life? Things like this, okay? What does shopping look like? Whatever else. Sign up for that. You're going to want to be in there. The questions that we're going to be taking directly to Knox County Mayor Glenn Jacobs are going to come from that Zoom event, so we definitely want to be in there as well. Hey, Shine, greatest audience in the nation appreciation segment here. If you're appreciative of something, if you need prayer requests, concerns for something, if you have a shout out for somebody, encouragement, moment of praise, whatever else, throw that in the comment section. We always love to hear what's going on there. If you don't feel like it's something that you want the entire community to know about, that's part of why we're doing this, is to get community awareness and community building and strength and growth and progression together, all these things. If you don't feel too strong about letting the entire community know right now, put that in a comment and send it directly to the Real News messaging board. Send it to myself directly, to David directly. However you want to do that, we'll make sure to get you some help out there. Businesses, that are innovating, that are trying to stay up, that are trying to do awesome things for the community, bring that to our attention. In that vein, go into our first story that you see in the notes there as well. Shine actually brought this to my attention last night, saying, "Hey, man, this is a perfect thing that we can see right now for the greatest audience in the nation appreciation segment." That headline that you see, Knoxville Facebook group making sure that no one goes hungry. And I'll tell you right now, Sean, I actually linked the direct Facebook group itself. If anyone needs this, if anyone knows of anyone that needs this, the Knoxville Facebook group making sure that no one goes hungry is a group called Knoxville Eats. It's a popular Facebook group called Knoxville Eats, making sure that people in Knoxville don't go hungry. They're connecting people in need with people who want to help. All right, so people that need food are really being connected with people that want to give that food. Now, Stephanie Wren is an individual that was just helped by this group. She was interviewed for this, says that her world was rocked even before the coronavirus started. She says, quote, "My husband passed away in December. And this quarantine, the self-quarantine, was kind of like what I was already doing," she said, because my husband had just passed away. She said, "I'm not out here trying to do things. I go to the grocery store. I go to the grocery store. Anything I do in my life involves my kids." Now, she has 3 boys, Sean, ages 5, 16, and 18. Ages 5, 16, and 18. And you know how much these teenage kids can eat, buddy. And if these teenage kids have friends at all, if they're anything like my friends were, I'm not joking when I say this, I would literally come out of my room sometimes or come home from football practice or something. Some of my buddies would be in my house eating my parents' food before I had gotten home.
I was one of those people. I used to sneak in through his bedroom window downstairs, walk up through the basement, and just walk into the kitchen. And like his little sister would be like, "What are you doing here?" And I'm like, "I'm hungry. Do y'all have any Pop-Tarts?" That's a real story. It happened all the time. You can ask Grant's sister. It's totally legit.
One of my favorite stories from that, quick aside here, is I actually ended up getting a call. You have to know my father, Rick Henry, but I ended up getting a call one day.
Oh yeah, someone almost called.
I was actually driving downtown Knoxville to try and a tux for the prom, and my father calls me and says, "Grant, is there a reason why anyone you know might be breaking into your bedroom window?" I thought, like, possibly. There's a number of reasons.
Yeah, there's a number of great reasons. Like, right. Shine doesn't have enough to do with his life, so he's probably breaking into my window.
So anyways, he's like, so the neighbors may or may not have called the cops and somebody breaking into their house.
Wait, so why did we go down this road? Why did we even get So what were we talking about?
Stephanie Wren has 3 children, ages 5, 16, and 18. And she was saying that I was out of snacks, I was out of bread, I was out of milk. She says, "Lord, the milk that my 2 teenage boys were drinking, almost 2 gallons a day if I would let them." She says, "That's how it's impacted my life thus far. And that's how the coronavirus has hurt us financially, on top of losing her husband in December." She says, "I wasn't prepared food-wise for them to be home 24 hours a day." It's another thing that I didn't think about initially, Sean. All right, we're going to talk about education here in a minute, children being home obviously now it's all every single meal of the day that you're having to feed children for, sure. Right? So,
well, and like usually people who are younger, if they do have jobs, they're probably jobs that got deemed non-essential. So if they were buying some of their own meals or, paying for lunch while they were at work and things like that, that's all gone. So there's that too. It may not just be because I was sitting there thinking, well, tell your kids to eat less. Well, that may not be the case. It may have been that her kids were supplementing their own food budget and are unable to do so now.
And actually, man, another shout out here to some of these public schools that are doing great things. I know Oak Ridge Public Schools in particular. I know for a time, I don't know if they're still doing it, but I know for a time they were offering 4,000 to 5,000 lunches per month or week. I don't know the time frame, but
a lot of schools all over the country have been doing that. It's been really good to see people step up and like have the awareness that some school age children literally depend on those school meals. They don't just supplement the meals from home. They are the home plans on those kids getting those meals when they do, and you would probably even say budget their life, assuming the kids are going to get those meals at those times. So yeah, that's just them having that awareness and then responding to it. That's excellent.
Well, this lady Stephanie Wren, she said she was finding it hard to budget for the meals and snacks for her children. That's when she found Knoxville Eats Food Pantry on Facebook. And again, that Facebook link is in this link here. Even if you don't need it, if you know someone else that does need it, send it their way. Now, this page allows you to sponsor a family or give whatever you have in your pantry. Now, Chloe Cox is the one of the administrators for the pages here, said that there's always been a need, more so because of the coronavirus now. And in the last month, they've been able to help 25 families in the Knoxville area alone get all the food they need, all the money and donations stay local, so you can see who you are helping. And Shauna, I just thought this was such a great thing to bring up that you sent me last night, buddy, for a couple of different reasons. One, it keeps it local. It keeps that theme that we talk about all the time of localized solutions for localized problems are usually going to be the most effective. It's a way to prove that point that a federal blanket statement is probably not going to be most effective for other than, say a Facebook group getting on here and just solving a problem themselves. And third, man, there's all these stories that you're hearing now about these food lines building up, about people waiting in their cars in literally, a quarter mile, if not a mile down the road, stretching out car after car after car of people that are just in line for food pantries. All right. And this Facebook group is one of, I assume, many, too many to mention right now, of churches, nonprofit organizations that all do fairly similar things. So I would say, if you're in help, find one of these groups. And if you have something to spare, if you can spare right now, if you have some discretionary income laying around, some discretionary foodstuffs laying around, donate to a cause like this, man, because it really is going to be community that's trying to help community that solves some of these problems. And I'm telling you, buddy, I think if we can get this right in Tennessee, be sort of a shining beacon or example to the rest of the country there, man. If unless you want to make a follow-up statement, Sean.
Just one more. Just part of the reason I sent it was not just because of the feel good of it, like you said, the keeping it local, and also giving our audience the opportunity to help, because not only do we want to give you opportunities to, amplify your voice and do stuff politically, we want to give you opportunities to be a part of solutions for the community that don't involve the institution of government. Sometimes you can, we talk about that, but this is like a real world example of how you can solve problems using other institutions, using an institution of community. So you don't have to go to government, don't have to deal with authoritarianism in order to solve problems, that's key. The other reason I posted it is because, yes, like you said, there are huge problems with food pantries all over the country in places that have been hard hit. I think some of the worst places right now are like New York, California, and weirdly enough, Pennsylvania, like in the Philadelphia metro area. Part of the problem is the current situation for those food banks is not fitting the market, right?
Yeah.
They not only are they running out of food, that's not the main problem. The main problem is these big food banks can't get physical volunteers to come give out the food, which is creating the long lines because there's less people volunteering. And I understand, right? Being around other people and you're not even making money, and then you're around people that are constantly changing, maybe hundreds of people. So that would make some people nervous. This is an innovation, this Facebook group. Being able to connect individual people who have with individual people who need, and then you only have a one-to-one, you know what I'm saying? One person going and helping one person, or maybe two people going to help one person. That lessens the amount of transfer possibility of disease and makes people feel safer, as opposed to 30, 40 people going to a brick and mortar food bank and giving out food to hundreds of people. Definitely that whole situation increasing the likelihood of the spread of disease. So this is not only just a feel-good story, it's an innovation in the market, you know what I'm saying, kind of story. And that's also something we talk about. People who are innovating, people who are trying different things that fit this situation well. And I want to applaud that Facebook group for that, being able to be nimble, being able to move with the situation. So that's what I want to. And on the food front, I got to show everybody something. I got to show and tell today. Hold on.
All right. I love that segue transition. Oh, and on the food
I got
front.
show and tell today, everybody.
Right.
After a 5-week backlog, I finally got my storable food in the mail.
Awesome.
I have a 1-week plastic tote of storable food. I'm so excited.
Nice,
I didn't think
man.
I was going to get it. I ordered this literally in the last week of February, and that's how backed up the storable food companies have been. So there's that. They're still backed up, I assume. But anyway, we can move on from this.
I'm sure those businesses are thriving right now with the food, the preparation
that company
stuff,
in particular, right? I know. I think they've built 4 new factories.
Gee.
So I mean, it's hundreds of new employees, tens of thousands of dollars, maybe more than that, of new business and things like that. But I think the government is really booming a lot of that storable food business. I think the government the FEMA in particular bought a whole lot of storable food on the front end of this for like the Army and emergency workers and things like that.
Kelly says in Facebook, by the way, volunteers, the spirit of our state, going on to say that food bank lines 3,000 cars deep, only going to get worse. Sadly, a great illustration of why we shouldn't have a giant national shutdown. I'll tell you another illustration of why we shouldn't have a national shutdown, man, is what's going on with the economy. And that potentially might lead to some price gouging situations. And Shine, let me pursue a second story here where I might have an opinion that may get me. There's a couple opinions I'm probably going to have this morning that might get me in trouble with the Real News audience. This one in particular, though, buddy, I'm finding myself more and more as we talk about these stories. I don't really like the idea of legislating against price gouging. I really just don't like it.
I don't like it either. Yeah, because like I think I've said it on the show multiple times. I'm okay with the guy at the gas pump charging a little bit more to make sure he can get more supply because the costs have gone up.
Yeah.
Like, wouldn't you rather pay more at your gas pump and then know that it's going to be there as opposed to pay less and know it's going to run out? I mean, wouldn't you?
Right.
Like, that's just an anecdotal example that you can apply to any part of the market. That's
exactly right, and that's exactly what ends up happening. I mean, in general, I think the idea behind these things is that price gouging can serve as a sort of a morally admirable goal by promoting an effective allocation of scarce and needed resources. That's exactly what Shine's talking about during a crisis period, during a pandemic period, and creating economic signals which will lead to increases in the supply of needed goods available to the desperate parts of the population. So what Shine's saying is, obviously, if you're paying a little bit more, you're going to be buying less of that of an amount. If you buy less than an amount, there's more to go around. Scarcity is obviously a basic economic principle that says if there's only so much to go around, only so many people can do it. You have to properly allocate those resources. And here's the interesting thing, though, buddy, is I bring that up because we finally have a settlement reached in the price gouging case of these 2 brothers that bought 17,000 hand sanitizers, 17,000 bottles of hand sanitizer. And I'm trying to figure out, where is this line of delineation, Shine, between someone's just being a bad guy, just a bad actor with malicious intent, and someone's doing price gouging to maintain resources. I don't know if these two are different. They feel similar sometimes, but we all remember these 2 brothers that attempted to price gouge a bunch of hand sanitizers in Tennessee here. Brother, they're Matthew and Noah Colvin. They've been doing business. You can find this article in the show notes as well. But they've been doing business in Ray and Hamilton County since 2018. And they first made headlines when Matthew got interviewed by the New York Times saying that it was just like 17,000 bottles of hand sanitizer behind him, saying, I have nowhere to sell them anymore. I just got to store them on my shelves. In that interview, he said that his emergency items were obviously pulled from Amazon. This is why he had nowhere to sell them. Pulled from Amazon because he included 300 bottles of sanitizer marked at prices between $8 and $70. That's $8 and $70 per bottle. Okay. Now this $70 per bottle side of this end here, when you have 18,000 bottles in your garage that you went and bought from other convenience stores, that to me tinges and leans towards the side of like, you're just a bad actor in the market with malicious intent. Okay. But that's also a market correcting factor.
But when have we ever cared if the person we're buying stuff from has malicious intent? I mean, Apple enslaves its employees in China, and we line up for those things. When have we ever cared if the person we're buying from has bad intent? Or when have we ever cared about the intent ever, good or bad? When does someone's morality really enter in to our price decisions and our purchasing decisions? Ever. Especially if you're not,
hardly at all.
Especially if you're someone who's not addicted to virtue signaling. Now, if you're someone who's a millennial, this has become a market. Well, they say it's become a market thing. I don't necessarily know if it actually has, but they say there is a market of people in the consumer class of like 19 to 35. There are people who think about the moral stance and the health, whatever, the stance of a particular company. People are, choose with your dollars. And I guess even in the liberty movement, there have been movements to say that person doesn't represent our ideas. Let's not spend money there, I guess. But it's not a wide cultural phenomenon. It's very narrow and anecdotal. I'd say 90%, let's be generous, of people's purchasing opinions come from, I want that and I have the right amount of money. Not, I think that person's a good person or I think that person's a bad person. No one's ever thinking that. And what we do have a comment in here that says price gouging ensures scarce resources are available when they're needed. That's kind of what I was saying is, wouldn't you rather things be more expensive and know it's going to be there? Because that's why people charge more, right? They charge more because it's going to cost more for them, or it could cost more for them in the future. I'd rather pay more and know the gas is going to be there than pay less and know it's going to run out. Right. And I guess it's no guarantee when they charge more that there's going to be more, but at least I'm raising the percentage chance there's going to be more, because the person in my area can afford to maybe buy more than someone in Blaine,
right?
Or something like that.
You also want to make sure that the individual or the company, or rather that's providing whatever service or product to you, can maintain to provide or providing that service or product. So if you're going to buy gas and the person that's providing that gas to you has to charge a little bit more so he can have more overhead, labor costs, whatever else to continue to purchase the price, because it's probably costing him more to buy as well as the market tends to fluctuate, then that's just how the market ends up working. However, the following comment from what you just mentioned from Daniel, the comment from Kelly, is a great illustration of the juxtaposition of where a lot of people are. You have this guttural feeling of someone buying 18,000 bottles worth of hand sanitizer to try and resell for $70 per bottle on Amazon. You have this guttural feeling like, dude, that's just a foul player in the marketplace. That should not be supported.
Why, though? Where does that come from?
I'm not saying this in my opinion.
Oh, okay.
Well, because this is what people are feeling, man.
Because people don't need hand sanitizer.
Reasonable.
That's what's so weird.
This on the forefront.
Grant, regular people don't need hand. I mean, I would understand on things like people actually need. I don't know.
What do you mean by that, though?
Like, so gaseline is a good example. Gasoline is something that people
in comparison to hand sanitizer.
Yeah, people don't need hand sanitizer. I mean, the CDC has even said that washing your hands is way better than hand sanitizer. 100%. Because hand sanitizer doesn't kill everything and it doesn't wash it off you. You know what I'm saying? So if it doesn't kill everything that's on your hands, it's still on your hands. And that chemical in hand sanitizer is poisonous. So if you put hand sanitizer all over your hands and then go eat fried chicken without a fork, you're poisoning yourself. It's literally poison. And I never use hand sanitizer. Hand sanitizer is not needed. So there'd be no reason to regulate it. I think the only reason they regulated it early is they recommended healthcare workers having hand sanitizer. Now that's a little different than you, the regular person. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Grant.
Kelly said in Facebook here, price gouging is super bad when it's items like diapers and formula and baby stuff. That's not good. And I think what she means is when it comes to items of like pure necessity, a little bit of what you're talking about too, gasoline or foodstuffs or diapers or formula or whatever, that can get to a situation where you say like, that is just bad on its face. She's making the argument that it's prima facie bad. You don't have to get too much argumentation behind it to have this guttural feeling of that person is a foul player in the marketplace and something should be done. But here's what I'm saying, Shine, is that's something that should be done should not be legislation. I have no problem with publicly shaming these two brothers, okay? I have no problem with publicly shaming these two brothers into a situation of like, bro, you're charging $70 per bottle, and somehow the media is convinced some little granny over here that if she's going to go shopping, she should probably have some hand sanitizer with her at a Kroger, and that's probably a good suggestion to do. So the fact that you're hoarding all this out of 3 counties means that she can't go purchase it herself. She needs that, and she's not going to buy it for $70 a bottle on your Amazon site. So if you want to publicly shame these two brothers into donating it off to charity, which is sort of what happened, I have no problem with that at all. But setting up legislation to tackle that preemptively does create a very real harm in the marketplace.
It causes huge harm. It's a huge harm. What if those people who bought all that stuff used their last remaining capital because they just got fired? What if they just got fired and they took a risk using their last remaining capital to buy something that they thought they had enough margin in the value in order to make it through this crisis because they lost their jobs? I mean, that's my thing about the legislation part. Maybe people are doing that because they want to live. Maybe they're not jerks. Maybe they're not trying to make a whole bunch of money. Maybe they're just trying to live. I mean, what if I'd gone out and bought 100 cartons of cigarettes and I was selling cigarettes on my street corner for $5 a Lucy? You know, would I be price gouging? Or what if I'd just been fired? What if that was the only way I could feed my family? Would that be, I mean, people are addicted to cigarettes. People get really upset when they can't have one, you know? So
I mean, that's what started that Eric, goodness gracious, now I can't think of his last name. The individual that they got choked out, that unsanctioned move by New York police officers, he was selling Lucy cigarettes in the corner, and that's exactly what happens because in New York City.
And I'm saying in this era, I mean, obviously I think his last name was Brown, by the way. But this is more than a regular, this is even, for everyone in America, this is worse than regular living in the ghetto. Because at least people living in the ghetto could get out and try to make money. You know, right now, no matter where you live, you can't, you know, if you can't get out and make money, you can't, you know. So I don't know. I don't understand that whole, because there's a line there where you're a genius and then you become a bad person. There's a line there where if you buy everything that someone needs and you set a good price that people accept and you make money, then you're a genius. But if you buy just too much, and if you charge a little too much, then you're a bad person. So that's a really weird thing, too, on that front.
The way this story ends here is that the Tennessee Attorney General had an idea of what to do with these items that we've been told over the last couple of weeks here. In a settlement that was filed Monday of this week, the AG actually said that the Colvin brothers cooperated with their investigations after being, quote, confronted and surrendered all of their supplies to a nonprofit organization in Tennessee and officials in Kentucky. Now, that's the part that I don't really like too much. It's like it's this threat of legal action behind it where it's like, okay, this wasn't exactly voluntary action on their behalf. If you come with a literal police department, bro, on behalf of the AG orders to say, like, give me your stuff, donate your stuff. Is it really donation if you're doing it on the back end of, like, donate or else?
If I could donate it for its retail value,
they didn't. They just lost whatever it cost them to put into that.
So I would have just said no and said, well, throw me in jail then, you know, like, but like, if I was able to donate it at retail value and tax write-off for retail value, I mean, especially with the IRS sending out checks right now, I mean, it's tax time right now, you know? I mean, that's not a bad deal if you get to donate it for retail, but if they made them donate it for pennies on the dollar for the value, then they basically just stole money from them.
See, and I wonder what the actual legal ramifications would be, which would be an easy thing to look up, because this agreement that they signed into, they had already been investigation was launched on March 14th, and they were issued cease and desist or stop and desist orders to buy and sell medical goods. And oddly enough, here's some of the language that I did find saying that as part of the settlement, the Colvins are prohibited from selling emergency or medical supplies in excess of the price generally charged during any declared state of abnormal economic disruption. I don't even know what the general.
Grant, I think they can cite federal law.
But they go on to say that authorities said that those supplies include, but are not limited to, prescription, non-prescription medications, bandages, gauzes, isopropyl alcohol, antibacterial products, water, flashlights, radios, batteries, candles, blankets, soap, diapers, temporary shelters, tape, toiletries, plywood, nails, and hammers. Dude, it's like a laundry list of things that if you just happen to have laying around, if they get caught selling to their neighbor for something marked above whatever the generally charged price is. And what does that mean, generally charged price? Is that Home Depot or is that the mom and pop shop down the street? And can we not allow for some type of variation in that?
These are all the list of things they can't sell. Is that REI or Cantmore, you know?
Right.
That's all I had. I mean, I think you can cite. I think they're using federal law though, Grant, because they did a press conference with William Barr like 2.5 weeks ago where they talked about people hoarding masks and PPE, and they used, I don't know if it was the Defense Production Act or another federal law that basically said in a time of emergency, if the federal government has something they've deemed as essential, you can't hoard it. And I think there's current law they're using to do this. I don't think it's emergency powers is what I'm saying.
Oh, no. I think you're totally correct on that. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just, and it is a little bit arbitrary, but it's anything the government says we need. And I think the problem with these guys is they use something that the government said that healthcare workers needed, which is the sanitizer. If it had been something like whiskey I don't think it would have been a big deal. If it had been cigarettes, like my example, I don't think it would have been a big deal. I think it's the fact that it was something that the CDC and whatever said the hospitals needed.
Well, in another story of things that I can't quite understand yet, it's the next story in our list here. It's coming from WATE. Our own Senator Marsha Blackburn has now introduced legislation to allow Americans to sue China for pandemic losses. Okay, and this is another thing where I'm wondering, bro, like this is another sort of guttural reaction type scenario. All right, because in America you have to have jurisdiction over the individual that you're suing. I don't know how you get jurisdiction over the country of China or a Chinese national. How do you get him to show up in an American court is the question I'm asking. Is this just a moral win? The story is basically that there's legislation now that's been introduced that allow United States citizens to sue China for money lost during coronavirus outbreaks. Now, her and Arizona Senator Martha McSally, they plan to introduce this. It's called the Stop COVID Act, which is they love to do these little, acronyms or whatever. It stands for Stop China Originated Viral Infectious Diseases Acts. Blackburn goes on to say that it would empower Americans to sue China in U.S. court and seek compensation for the devastating harm the deadly viruses have caused the economy and human life. The China's Communist Party must face consequences for its role in the origin of spreading this coronavirus. That's a quote directly from Senator Blackburn herself, going on to say the costs are devastating, trillions of dollars in economic damage, more than 22 million American jobs lost, over 150,000 deaths worldwide, and counting. They finished this all by saying that the Chinese government must be held accountable for the pain it's inflicted across the United States. I don't think anybody disagrees with any of that. My general question is how? How do you do it? I mean, I'm not, maybe I'm asking for an expert legal opinion here. I don't know, but on its face, this feels sort of like a feel-good piece of legislation to sort of like, I don't know, is it chumming the red waters a little bit? You get what I'm saying, buddy? Is it just chumming her base a little bit to say like we're trying to do something for you so we can hold China accountable? Well, I like that, but I'm not going to be able to hold the individual Mr. Henry is not going to be able to hold China accountable. Maybe I'm wrong, buddy, and I'll recant if I need to later on. But it seems like some type of international sanctioning body is going to have to be able to do this, or better yet, dude, let's stop buying Chinese products. Let's stop buying into Chinese sort of overlord of whatever Hollywood is putting out. Let's use our dollars, the consumer base that we have, to make a real statement instead of doing something that seems arbitrary like this, of somehow passing legislation that makes me think I'm actually going to be able to sue the country of China or a Chinese national or a Chinese company for that matter. Dude, it doesn't seem like it would work practically for me. What does seem like it would work is maybe I won't buy a Huawei phone. Maybe I won't get into their 5G technology. I don't know, dude. Something that I can personally control because I can control that aspect of, again, the marketplace. Am I off here, Shine? I don't know. Let me know in the Facebook section.
You're really asking probably the wrong person, Grant. Not because I don't know, but because my opinion might be unpopular with our audience.
Oh,
now, when it comes to inside American borders, I'm all for free market, all for it. I don't like the price gouging regulations. I don't like that. But when it comes, I have developed over the past couple of years, and I know some of our audience is gonna be, especially some of our audience is not gonna like this. But I've developed a protectionism type of attitude, especially when it comes to communists. Not just the Chinese, any government that is not operating in the free market, that is using a command system to manipulate prices, manipulate their people, manipulate not giving us safe products, things like that. All those kind of things that are not really, if they're messing with the market, then I think it's okay for us to mess with them, I guess is my thing. And when it comes to China, we still have phase 2 of the U.S.-China trade deal to go through.
Yeah.
We have seen China infiltrate these international systems that you were just talking about. Where would we even, what kind of court would we sue China in? There's an international trade court. There's an international, there's all kinds of things like the WHO and things like that China has been infiltrating over the past decades. And all of these lawsuits could be things that either diminish their standing in those international institutions, or could be used as evidence that there are certain things that need to be done in phase 2 or phase 3 of the U.S.-China trade deal, where they will pay a price, guaranteed. When phase 2, even phase 1 may be reorganized or reworked on or scrapped, by the way, or scrapped. That all may happen. And all this kind of stuff could feed into that. I also want to remind everybody that didn't our government give us the ability to sue Saudi Arabia over 9/11.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So there's precedent for things like this. This isn't out of
That's
left
valid.
field.
I hear you.
This isn't out of left field. And a lot of things, too, something else that's important is these countries like China and Saudi Arabia and places that we've been given permission as citizens that we have standing in court. These places own property in the United States. These people have employees in these countries. They're not America, right? They have state-owned businesses. They have state-owned or state-sponsored businesses. They have assets that can be taken and given to people who have experienced harm because of that country. There are assets that are under our jurisdiction, Grant. Maybe the country is not under our jurisdiction, but there are assets owned by that country that are under our jurisdiction. Okay. So those are just some things where it's like, this is not crazy. There is precedent, and there is a way to adjudicate. Now, are all those things our audience would agree with? I don't know, but it is possible. And I don't think it's just feel-good stuff, Grant, because of the things I mentioned, because it is possible to hold China accountable in a number of ways, especially given this administration that has showed that, I mean, they made China pay like $150 billion a month for 3 or 4 months in order to do business here. That happened. Before phase 1 kicked in, China was just giving us so much money in order to do business, and that was through the tariffs. So, I don't know. That's just some added context there.
Well, and let me say, shifting gears a little bit here, we just had a comment saying that we must have the ability to compete equal playing field in trade. I think there's this inherent desire in all human beings of fairness and compassion. Okay, Jordan Peterson speaks a lot about this as well, of this inherent desire, even from when we're children. We don't mind if we lose a game necessarily. We just want to lose fairly. And transitioning hard here, some of the critiques against President Trump now is that this next ad that I'm about to play may be a version of him not playing fairly, which I just love that critique. But if you haven't seen this yet, y'all,
oh yeah, because Trump is treated so fairly all the time, so he must play by the rules. I think he's just playing the game that has been played with him.
Watch this next campaign ad. If you haven't seen this yet, love or hate Trump,
you don't have to love Trump, but if you hate Pelosi, you'll love this.
Yeah, so this is just gold. Watch this.
We turn now to that $350 billion fund to help small businesses and its workers get through the shutdown.
It will be up to Congress to restock it.
But Democrats blocking that move this morning.
They asked for $250 billion in 48 hours. I said, well, I don't think so. They objected, and I congratulate the Senate Democrats.
Speaker Pelosi, what are you going to share with us from your home?
Chocolate candy.
Thousands have been forced to wait for hours at food banks all across the country.
This is chocolate, and then we have some other chocolate here. We just got it restocked with the ice cream.
You don't want to eat up everything all at one time.
I can't do it much longer. I'm trying so hard.
We're, shall we say, enjoying.
Having to admit that, yeah, we're starving, and
I like it better than anything else.
Taping this segment, there are 22 million people out of work.
This specific program is about stopping job losses today.
This is hurting people bad.
Other people in our family look for some other flavors, but
right now it's survival mode. You don't know where that next something else is going to come from.
I don't know what I would have done if ice cream were not invented. I just wonder.
Ice cream. And let me say this first of all, buddy. Okay, first of all, brutal. As soon as she shot that thing, showing that the freezer full of ice cream, nobody should have been surprised that this was about to come out. The fact that this happened should not be surprising to anybody. What's slightly surprising to me is the Hollywood level editing that was done, dude. That with the dystopic.
I am not surprised that the Trump campaign can edit a video. They've been making memes for 6 years that went viral. I mean, they probably hired Carpe Donktum. He probably did it. I mean, I'm not kidding. If I were them, I would have hired Carpe Donktum. I mean, he's the one. He's made lots of videos like that.
I'll tell you, man, like
that was the most brutal thing I've ever seen. I mean, good
and it focuses
Lord.
so much on what we've spoken about the last couple of weeks here and what I think people are finally waking up to. Remember this, Sean? I think we really drove this home well when we were talking last week about that new research that had come out indicating from what I believe to be 2 Chinese, if not Wuhan-based researchers that were saying, look, we might have some strong evidence that some of this coronavirus actually came out of, by way of negligence, came out of a level 4 whatever biolab from Wuhan. And we said at the time, it doesn't necessarily matter. We were actually responding to my brother, someone, and he was saying there's not super substantiated evidence yet. He said yet that this could be there. And we said it doesn't necessarily matter what the evidence is. Unfortunately, as much as I would say that is an unfortunate thing to say, it's narratives. It's sellable, believable narratives that are carrying the day right now. And this is a perfect example, buddy. Okay, in a vacuum, or rather, sorry, not in a vacuum, in context, Nancy Pelosi showing the ice cream in her $24,000 freezer, which I'm pretty sure how much that freezer cost, by the way, showing her ice cream stock in a $24,000 freezer in context is not that outrageous. It's this thing of getting to know your elected official and making them more personable and humanizing them or whatever and showing how they live their lives and blah, blah, blah. It's not relatable, but it's something politicians do nowadays. Even our own Tim Burchett is sitting there with this terrible angle every single time he gets out of their committee meeting. I don't know why he does the angle, but whatever. As him walking down the hall, immediately updating his constituents. It's a way to cut through the media minutia. Okay, I get that. So in context, it's not terrible. But with this narrative driven behind it, it doesn't matter. None of that context matters anymore. Do you get what I'm saying, Shine? And that's what I'm saying. I think people need to, 1, be able to see for what it is, and 2, understand that it is narratives that are winning the day now. It's in our DNA. Go ahead.
It's stories. For sure. But I mean, Nancy Pelosi wasn't getting roasted because of the ice cream. Right? The ice cream added context to why she was being roasted. The ice cream was the cherry on top of why she was being roasted. She was roasting because she was being flippant about not providing that money to small businesses. The flippancy. If that's not a word you're familiar with, she was being fast and loose or kidding around with the idea that there's businesses that need money to pay employees. There are businesses that need money to feed themselves and their own families. And she was kind of making fun of that. And then she went from that to talking about ice cream. Now, the thing about ice cream, to me, that was funny, is who's that? Berkshire Hathaway. Who's that guy who's CEO of Berkshire Hathaway, the older guy?
Buffett?
Buffett. William Buffett. Go Google images of of Buffett. You will see him. The whole page of Google is going to be him eating ice cream. Every time. That's his move. And he's written about it in books, and he's talked about it in interviews. It's a thing he does to make himself seem more relatable and less like, the billionaire he is. Make him seem more like of the people. Nancy Pelosi obviously knows that this is a move that William Buffett uses. She copied this move. But in her ignorance, in her lack of showmanship, in her lack of connection to people and the way they think, and even this situation, she thought that something William Buffett smartly did in a time of wealth and prosperity, it's fine to have pictures of yourself eating ice cream if most Americans could go out and get ice cream if they wanted to. She's so disconnected to how people perceive her and this situation. I would even say, she's saying she's enjoying herself. She's having a good time in quarantine. She's having a totally different experience than a lot of other people. Yeah. So she's 100%. So disconnected from that. That's why she's being roasted. And the ice cream thing is just a Rosetta Stone to make that point fully and clearly and quickly. And it will be a very effective ad. And she shouldn't have been the number one thing. I'm telling you, the key thing in that clip was they asked for $250 billion, and we were like, That one thing is the reason it was hot.
Right.
Is the flippancy about the money that people need. It isn't really the ice cream. The ice cream's the thing you remember because, like Grant said, we think of things in stories. But the thing that made that story hot was the flippancy about that money.
And this is something.
It's one thing for her to not want to give the money and have a principled reason and explain that. It's that flippancy of, I don't care what they need or want. I'm just going to eat ice cream.
This is something that's inherent in our human nature. That thing of you don't necessarily notice the change that you're going through when you're in the midst of it sometimes, right? And you don't notice necessarily how you have lost the ability to relate. It doesn't just happen with politicians. Everybody has this pride complex. Everybody gets a little small sense of megalomania once you're thrust into the limelight. Okay, we see the same thing with comedians and actors and everyone else. I personally, anyway. I follow stand-up comedy quite a bit. My buddy Shine does as well. He was actually involved in it for a little while.
I was a floor manager at a comedy club for a while.
Right? And I've noticed, man, like there are some stand-up comics you can point to, in particular Kevin Hart, who rose to fame with a particular style of delivery, a particular style or shtick, even with you, if you will. And as he got richer and richer and more famous and more famous and more movies, and his mega net worth went into the hundreds and hundreds of millions, that same style of delivery sort of lost its sting. It's lost its general appeal. So when he went from making a joke that everybody could immediately relate to, to instead changing the jokes to, I was with this celebrity one time and he rented out all of Disneyland. Nobody knows how to get into that space. They just don't understand it. And it's not necessarily Kevin Hart's fault. What's he supposed to do? Turn away that language? That money? No. But at a minimum, the individual that's going through that should at least recognize that they're going through that and should at least understand that they've lost that ability to relate. Going on to the final story here, Sam, we may have to go a little bit long today, or I may just cut this.
Oh, no, I say we go as long as we need to. We're not really pressed today super hard, but there's a similar story about a guy who was mad about the protesters and said these rednecks are just want to go out and have a haircut. And it's this disconnect of people are starving. People are running out of food. People need to work. They need to feel value. And people are describing their anxiety about it like they just want to go have a haircut or just stay home and eat ice cream. They don't have any ice cream, you morons. They don't have anything. They don't have grains of rice. I mean, that's the disconnect there.
Hey, and by the way, let us know what you're thinking in the comments section here too. We'll catch up with these comments here in a second. Let's see. I think we got most of them, but follow along with this. And this next story in particular, y'all, I mean, I might need a little bit of help here because rarely Mr. Henry finds an opinion on something and just thinks like, that's just flat wrong. This is just absurd. It's asinine on its face. It's just too much. And this is one of those stories. I'm sure you've all read it at this point, and I'm sure you all have very strong opinions on it at this point. Coming from the Harvard Magazine edition of this month, the headline is The Risks of Homeschooling. And dare I say, it goes on to the full point of Mr. Henry's take on this, mine, and I say in the third person, Mr. Henry, because it's a bit of a character I'm playing right now. Nonetheless, my take on this is essentially Harvard telling everyone in the nation, look, we should have the right to indoctrinate your children, not you, okay? We should have the right. And I'm not playing when I say this. I'm reading verbatim. Let me get to the end of the article here just to set the context of what I'm about to read through so you guys don't think that I'm crazy. Here's a direct quote from the end of this article saying that homeschooling is bad. We should probably legislate against homeschooling, and maybe parents having full control over their children is not the best thing. Maybe it's even dangerous. Quote, I say again, quote, the issue is, do we think that parents should have 24/7 essentially authoritarian control over their children from ages 0 to 18? I think that's dangerous. Going on to say, I think it's always dangerous to put powerful people in charge of the powerless and to give the powerful ones total authority. Now, not to mind, directly after making that statement of saying, I think it's dangerous to give parents total authority, they make a self-refuting, contradictory follow-up statement of saying, I think it's always dangerous to put powerful people. Harvard, how are you not one of the most powerful institutions in the nation? And yeah, I said that correctly. I chose my words wisely there. I'm saying that Harvard is one of the most powerful institutions in this nation. Am I wrong in that? I don't think so. The name Harvard itself can get you a job regardless of what your degree is in.
They got the biggest amount of bailout money in the of all the colleges, by the way, too. That's how you know they're the most powerful.
So how do you make a statement to me, Harvard, saying that it's dangerous for parents to have 24/7 authoritarian control over their children from ages 0 to 18, and then go on to say, I think it's always dangerous for powerful people? How do you not recognize the contradiction, the immediate contradiction? I did not parse that improperly there. I read it directly from the article. This article is in the show notes if you want to follow along. And just the first paragraph of this article is, quote, rapidly increasing number of American families are opting out of sending their children to school. Just to school, they say, choosing instead to educate them at home. Homeschooled kids now account for roughly 3 to 4% of school-age children in the United States, a number equivalent to those attending charter schools and larger than the number currently in, I guess, your standard version of private schools there. Now, again, I would pause here and say, I don't know, bro. I don't know. Look, maybe some parents are thinking that the value that they're getting out of their public education is not exactly what they would like. Maybe we need to start listening directly to the teachers instead of those that have sort of bureaucratic oversight or those in authoritative positions. Maybe the teachers that are on the ground level that are actually dealing with this are probably the ones best equipped to solve those problems and actually issue solutions. Maybe, just maybe, every single time a local municipality or a city government or a county government or a state government, goodness gracious, issues or allocates in the budget a massive pay raise for teachers like Tennessee did this year, maybe we shouldn't just arbitrarily create new positions, new authoritative positions, new bureaucratic oversight positions. Literally, that's what we're doing. You realize this, right? Whenever we're issuing pay raises for teachers, we're in there on the back end coming in and saying, well, I don't know, we need a new administrative position over here and let's pay them $150,000 a year.
Yeah.
Well, what then ends up happening to the teacher raises, bro? The teachers themselves have to have the ability to allocate it once it gets done through the budgeting. Now, I'll say this here going on. You can read a lot of this article for yourself. You can clearly see where I'm up at this, but they go on to say that surveys of homeschoolers show that a majority of such families, some estimate up to 90%, are driven by conservative Christian beliefs and seek to remove their children from mainstream culture. Now, this individual notes that some of these parents are extreme religious ideologues who question science and promote female subservience and white supremacy. As an example, they list some scenario where an individual in Idaho was forced to work for her father's company. And we all know how good anecdotal evidence is to prove an overall point, right? Don't give me baseline statistics for anything.
There was a crazy man in Idaho and he had slaves and he was homeschooling them. You know, that's the anecdotal evidence, right?
She goes on to say that we essentially have an unregulated regime in the area of homeschooling. All 50 states have laws that make education compulsory, and state constitutions ensure a right to education. But if you look at the legal regime governing homeschools, there are very few requirements that parents do anything, even apparent requirements such as submitting curricula or providing evidence that the teachers are learning are taking place, that teaching and learning are taking place. She says those aren't even necessarily enforced. Only about a dozen states have rules about the level of education needed by parents in homeschooling that adds. That means effectively that people can homeschool who've never gone to school themselves, who don't read or write themselves. Now, Shine, if that wasn't enough, I realize I'm rambling here, but stick with me for just a second here.
These barefoot idiots are educating their children.
But the main point that they drive home here, if you don't believe me, read the article for yourself. The main point that they drive home here is apparently we can't allow homeschooling because there will be an abundance of rise in child neglect or beatings or God forbid some type of child abuse. Now, this is where I'm saying, like, bro, you know how I feel about this, Shine, okay? I used to be a children's pastor. You know that I truly believe that the pinnacle of evil is exploiting innocence. And if God forbid, I don't have the stats to be able to figure out what she's talking about right now, but God forbid if this author is somehow trying to exploit a situation of possible child abuse to prove a point here, that's a little bit of what got my blood boiling this morning, okay?
That's gross.
This practice can isolate children. She argues that one benefit of sending children to school at age 4 or 5 is that teachers have mandated reports required to alert authorities for evidence of child abuse or neglect. All very true. I get that. She goes on to say that teachers and other school personnel constitute the largest percentage of people who report child protective services. That's also very true. She explains, whereas not one of 50 states requires that homeschooling parents be checked for prior reports of child abuse. Okay, fine, I get you. Continuing, even those convicted of child abuse, she adds, could still just decide, I'm going to take my kids out of school and homeschool them, okay? Now, I'll let you respond, Shine, and then we'll get caught up with some Facebook comments. There is a saving grace to all this. If you're looking at the same article I am, go down and read the comments section, and they are put in priority of top vote upvoted so that the top votes get the highest link there of what the comments are going to be. And in section by section by section by section, they are all completely agreeing with where I'm coming from on this. Last thing I'll say, Shine, is like, I don't want to read into this too much, and I don't have the statistics necessarily to go into what she's saying with the child abuse side of this. But again, one last time, God forbid that someone exploits that as a means by which we should say that we at Harvard have to have complete authoritative control over your child, because to tie this all back in with the coronavirus stuff, bro, because now what's happened is an absolute shock to our education system. We have now been forced overnight to take essentially every child out of public or private or co-op schooling and bring them back into the house. That is causing a reorientation at a base level of every single family in this nation to think finally for themselves, what is the best way to educate my child? What is the best way to bring them forward? Read some of those comments. A lot of them come for teachers. I'm rambling now, Shine. I'll kick it to you, and then we'll hit some comments section. Go ahead, buddy.
Well, a couple things I want to say. I mean, there's so many assumptions in that article, right? There's so many narratives put out as fact that are really not just opinion in some cases. They're just wrong. I want to throw out there that I would say, in fact, I do know some data out there that there was a study done that said women believe that, and this is generally, right, what success is for them is having a family and kids. That's what success is. They believe that other women think that getting a bunch of clicks on Instagram is what success is. But what they believed for them was success was having children. I think there was another study that looked at private schooling or homeschooling as another measure of success. Like, I can afford to send my kids to private school, so that makes me a better parent, right? Like, that there's been studies that people associate giving their kids a tailored, curated educational experience, a novel educational experience, as a sign of success. Like, I can either, like, someone being, one of the parents being able to stay home and homeschool means that the other parent is doing pretty well at work, because most people in America live paycheck to paycheck and don't have that kind of margin, right? So I don't think that's part of the rise in homeschooling, as I think people look at it as a sign of success or that they're doing well. And I'd say that's always been true for private schooling.
And let me address some comments real quick here, because I think Josh is hitting some good points here. Josh Perky says in Facebook, I see their point. Shared education experience, K through 12, serves as an indoctrination to an American life. Now, what he means, he goes on to say that this shared experience, the shared educational experience, can help people from diverse backgrounds relate. That's a very valid point. It can help them relate.
A lot of people from the Midwest have told me that. A lot of people from the Midwest said that was grounded in their education growing up. It was this shared experience to, like, this is kind of like citizen training. Like, this is what it's not just you're learning math, science, history. Like, you're learning how to be a good citizen. That's why you do the pledge. It's like statism. It's about, like, here are the values that we all collectively are a part of, and these come first. And not like and I know you ride the line there really tough with state indoctrination. You do ride that line. But a lot of people I've heard who, from the Midwest, actually, that's the most places I've heard that kind of sentiment, is that shared experience, citizen training, how to be a good citizen kind of opinion. I never hear that from the South, by the way. I never hear that from people in the South.
I certainly understand the practicality behind it, and I also agree with the practicality. Now, admittedly, there's several co-op systems around this state in particular that have figured out a way to do that arguably as well, maybe not as well as a public education system, simply by way of the pure number of individuals involved. But even these co-ops are saying, like, look, I send my kids to private school 2 to 3 days a week. The other, another 2 to 3 days a week, we're doing homeschool, and they have a multitude of extracurricular stuff they're involved in, taking karate classes over here, and they're playing soccer over here, and they're doing Sunday service thing over here. There's ways to figure out how to get your kids, some type of social acclimation.
I was homeschooled a third of my childhood. I was homeschooled from 5th grade all the way to spring semester of 10th grade. So, I mean, like, not an anecdotal chunk. And I'll say this, I'm cooler than regular people.
I agree with that.
I am a better communicator than regular people. I'm smarter than, at least in the things that I enjoy. In the things that I don't enjoy, I'm not smarter. But in the things that I enjoy, I am smarter than the average person. I have a better than average grasp on history. I have a better than average grasp on economics. I've been able to talk to adults with authority since I was 15 years old. And I think a lot of that has to do with homeschooling. Because my parents would either, they'd educate me themselves, and I'd be able to have direct communication in a non-parental type of communication, like communication with a teacher. You know what I'm saying? But I had individual care, and then if there was something they didn't know about, they'd send me to someone's house who knew about it. And then I got to talk to that adult and challenge that adult and wrestle. You know what I mean? Mentally and verbally wrestle with people in order to get stronger. And I'm better for it. And I've always encouraged people to homeschool because, like, I'm socially integrated, you know? Like, I'm as socially integrated as anyone you will ever meet in your life. I can get along with anyone, everyone. And I literally attribute that to homeschooling. And then when I went back to public school, I ran it. I mean, Grant was there. Me and him ran high school. We ran the place. And a lot of that was that confidence in speaking to adults. And that's something really important to teach kids. Because if kids don't talk to adults, then adults aren't going to offer them the opportunities that take them into adulthood. Because parents can't always offer those opportunities. Kids have to be able to show and impress other adults. And they do that with their mouth. You know what I mean?
Well, and I think a little bit of what Josh is touching on is this part that I've highlighted on the screen right now from this article, which is a valid thing to talk about, and it's a valid point that is worth bringing up. When it says children should grow up exposed to democratic values, ideas, and non-discrimination of tolerance of other people's viewpoints. On its face, as a statement by itself, absolutely, dude. Absolutely, you should be tolerant of other people's viewpoints. You should have the ability for analytical thought and critical reasoning and be able to consider a viewpoint that is different from yours, that you may disagree with, okay? What I'm focusing on primarily, and let me prove this point, let me really drive this home. What I'm focusing on primarily in this type of article is two different things. First of all, I'm focusing on when they come out, and by whoever this author is, I don't know this person from Joe down the street. I don't know if they're a Harvard professor, I assume is what they are, but whoever this author is comes out and says, the issue is, do we think that parents should have a 24/7 essentially authoritarian control over their children from ages 0 to 18? Yes, children at some point, they're children, man. They're children, okay? When they pass the point of 18 or whatever the age of consent is in a particular state, I guess at that point they become adults, they can make their own decisions. But dude, if you just leave it up to themselves, children are dumb too. They need guidance, all right? They need direction. They need molding. That's the whole point of being a child. That's the whole point of being a parent as well. When an individual comes out and says that we don't think that parents, the ones that created these children, that love them. I don't have children myself, so there's no way for me to empathize what it means to love a child. I do not get it, nor should I be able to get it, buddy. That's what I'm saying. Okay, the love that parent has.
You shouldn't be able to say you get it. That's for sure.
I can sympathize is what I'm saying, but I can never empathize with that. And for me to have the audacity, or for this author to have the audacity to say that a parent should not have, I'm just say authoritarian control, but it also implies that a parent is not going to always, constantly, continually be overwhelmed with looking out for the best interest of their child. That is absurd, dude. I vehemently disagree with that statement. Here's the second thing, okay? It's not just that I vehemently disagree with that type of statement. It's also that the reporting on this is outrageously disingenuous. Outrageously disingenuous. Listen to this paragraph right here, okay? In the United States, this author says, state legislators have been hesitant to restrict the practice of homeschooling because of the Homeschooling Legal Defense Association, a conservative Christian homeschooling advocacy group, which she describes as a small, well-organized, and, quote, overwhelmingly powerful, politically driven organization. Okay, during the last 30 years, activists has worked to dismantle many states' homeschooling restrictions and have opposed new regulatory efforts. This is where it really gets my goat, buddy. All right, going on to say, there's really no organized political opposition, so they basically get their way. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me, dude? How dumb do they think, or misinformed probably is the better way to put it. How misinformed does this author think that people actually are? There's really no organized political opposition, so they basically get their way. Hold on, let's break this down. Parse this with me for a second, okay? You just got done telling me that the Homeschool Legal Defense Association is a small advocacy group, okay? They're overwhelmingly politically powerful, but they're small. Do you know how many teachers there are in this country? Do you expect me not to understand that the teachers are in a very well-fashioned unionized format almost in every single state in this nation? Do you not expect that I know?
I mean, even ours, where we don't even have unions that are organized that way.
At any given moment, the teachers in Tennessee will have 300 plus individuals at the state capitol tomorrow. We work for grassroots organizations, and those people can show up like I would wish I could get people to show up for a cause I believe in. Are you kidding me, dude? There's no organized political opposition. That is absolutely outrageous. It's absurd on its face.
Well, it's like lie 13 or 14 in that article, though, to be fair.
Man. And it's also like, this is what I'm saying. The problem is not with the teachers either. The teachers stand up for what they believe in. The teachers have strong political power. Some of the problem is with those people that are, again, buddy, to book in this conversation and pull it full circle, the people that do not have a way to relate. They've lost the ability to relate. They cannot empathize with a teacher's plight. The people at the top that are making those decisions. This author thinks that I can't look up the state budget for how much is allocated for teacher wages. She thinks I can't look up the state budget for how much is allocated for state education. Are you serious? The problem then comes in when those folks that don't know how to relate at the top, when we're creating administrative positions that maybe don't want to pass it down later on, then you get a level of disconnect. You have this lack of ability to relate for those that are actually doing the job at the ground, man.
Even the mid-level managers in high schools and things like that, they don't have really any control over that, though. You know what I mean?
I hear you. And again,
it's the system. It's not. You get what I'm saying. So I want to just throw that out there. And we're not blaming anybody who works in any high schools or even in like school systems. The system has people do that, create those mid-level manager positions in the school boards and in because there's a cultural thing that if you have so many people, you need someone to manage them. But Grant, in both these articles, there's something else I wanted to say. I got a story. That both these articles, this is what's happening. There's a drowning man in the ocean, and he's about 15 feet away from you. You have a little board you're floating on, and the drowning man says, if you give me that board so I can float, you won't drown. That's what's happening. These Democrats, like Nancy Pelosi, they're totally disconnected. They're drowning. They're becoming irrelevant. And they're basically saying, let me run things, even though I don't have a board to float on and I'm drowning. Just give me the board and I'll make sure you don't drown. Harvard is even though it's the #1 institution for secondary academia, they're drowning. They're dying. They're becoming irrelevant culturally. And this is like the last dying grasp. Now, it still may take 2 or 3 decades. Harvard's been around a couple hundred years. But their influence is waning. Secondary education's influence is waning. And that isn't because of some right-wing conspiracy. It's because they haven't provided a good service. It's because they haven't provided that service at a good price. It's because they let government subsidize them and then let them grow to an amount of uselessness. There's several parts of secondary education that are completely useless and are a misallocation of resources. Not that I want the state to be allocating resources, but there's no reason why some of these people are employed to teach, like, cultural studies, art, don't be a mean person to people course. Like, there's no reason to pay those people.
Don't be a mean person to people.
Don't be a mean people to court, and you get credit for that. Like, that's a waste of resources. Those resources could be producing things of value, and that's catching up with these institutions. It's catching up with them. And it's never been more obvious than now when people are actually getting educated at home. In secondary education, in primary education, people are getting educated at home. Why are we paying the air conditioning bill for these large buildings? Do the buildings need to be this large? Do they need to be made of stone so that you can't get rid of them? Couldn't they be more temporary? Couldn't they be done in cheaper places? Do we need to make these places mausoleums to dead ideas? That's my question. And this whole situation has exposed the weaknesses of both those stories. It's Democrats and the the academic institution at large. I'm not picking on teachers, not picking on principals. I'm not even picking on school board members. There's at the very top, at the doctorate level area, those people are totally disconnected. They think they should run the world.
Exactly.
And the reason they're grasping for it so hard is they know their influence is waning. Their power is waning. And it's about time.
And that's what I wanted to make abundant. That's what I wanted to make abundantly clear, man, is my main problem here is that I just didn't want to believe all the horror stories I had been told about academia. And don't get me wrong, I've been through myself. I get it, okay? I got a JD. I know what it is to be in secondary education, get master's degrees, all that other stuff, okay? I understand. I just didn't want to believe at some of these Ivy League level elite style institutions that this style of stuff, this rhetoric, this pitch was going on. I'm sure everyone else knows people that are in the world of academia. One of my sister-in-laws is a professor. Okay, my brother was involved in academia for a very, very long time, has just entered the private sector as of about a few months ago this year. All right, I know these people personally. I just didn't want to believe that something like this that was so seemingly hardcore, almost like a philosopher king scenario where you let the philosopher kings of society raise your children and the parents don't have any right to raise their own children. That's what this stuff sounds like to me, bro. Okay, and that's what I'm focusing on here.
It's definitely archetypal like rhetoric. That, though. It's we know best. You don't know what you're doing. We know best. These stupid poor people don't know what they're doing. That's what they and you've seen that throughout this whole crisis. You've seen governors say when low-income people do stuff, that moves the virus along. That's the attitude of some of these elites, and it's gross. It's disgusting, and I hope people call them out for it.
Well, look, I didn't want to believe that was going on, but it's obviously here right now. Okay, I didn't want to believe that that's what's happening, but again, I will say part of the saving grace that I'm finding here is you look at that in the comment section. You can find that there. Okay, and I go to one of Josh's comments again one more time. Daniel talks about some of the teachers union stuff as well.
Daniel actually posted an article that rebuffed the article you're talking about.
Okay.
It's right there in the chat. It says 5 things that writer got wrong about that article. Might be a good read for everybody. Check that out. And again,
look, dude, to prove the point that my primary level of concern is with some of these elite level tops of the folks at Harvard. And I think, Sean, you're exactly right. They're recognizing that they're slowly becoming irrelevant, that the power that they used to have is not just, it's waning, it's in a slow atrophy. And I think this coronavirus has picked that up even more so now, or quickly. It's quickening that atrophy in a way that nothing else ever has. To Josh's comment though a second ago, he says, every day when I have the opportunity to drop off one of my kids at school, I gave them the following instructions, quote, listen to your teacher, do what she tells you to do, play nice with other kids, and have lots of fun. Dude, and that's exactly what I was told by my parents as well. I am a product of public schooling. And I think I did just fine, man. I'm a product of public schooling, but I will tell you this too. This is one of the reasons why I have such a problem with Harvard telling me that parents shouldn't have control over what's the best interest of their child, dude. First of all, that the underlying framework of law as far as it pertains to children is just that parents do have the best interest of their child at heart, okay? And that the best interest of the child is the polar star of what a court would consider. Okay, secondly, though, my parents, whenever we moved to a new area, into Tennessee in particular, the first thing they looked at was the schooling system. It didn't, like, they would drive another extra hour to work if they had to get us in the best schooling system around. That's the reason why we moved to Oak Ridge as opposed to Knoxville. Okay, that's why I grew up and went to Oak Ridge High School, is because we were originally looking at Bearden, and then they became wise of Oak Ridge and said, like, dude, half these people here that are teaching have PhDs. We're getting our kids in Oak Ridge High School, and that's what happened. Okay, so I would think that a lot of other, if not most of the other parents in this nation are saying the same thing. They're making the same decisions. They're trying to do the best thing by their children. How in the world could you make with a straight face? How can this Harvard professor make a straight face argument to me that, I don't know, man, I think we might have a better interest for children than the parents would have it for their own children? Dude, it's beyond absurd. And that's what I want to focus on here, is I just didn't want to believe that at the highest level of our elite institutions, this is the feeling even, let alone espousing these thoughts on a piece of paper that you're printing off to some publication that people would actually read. Dude, even having those thoughts internally, I didn't want to believe. And now we're sitting here where I'm actually responding to one of these articles, buddy. And I know we got to end the show, man. So I'll let you get some comments, or want to read some from Facebook if you want to, man. But
no, it's good. I think everybody just throwing in there what they tell their kids on the way to school. I think that's adorable. Check that out in the comments. Thank you for everybody who watched today. Thanks for watching every day. We really appreciate it. I think we mentioned this a lot, but this is not a commercial operation. We just do this because because we care about you guys. And during this whole time, we wanted to have a way to reach out to you, a way to spark conversations, and we appreciate the really incredible response we've gotten from doing the show. I mean, we're getting hundreds of views a day, but this isn't about us. It's about you guys for us. And we're not making any money doing this. We're not even trying to. We're not trying to be popular. We're just trying to create a space where people can have community, something to gather around every day and see their friends and high-five each other and pat each other on the back and saying we're doing a good job, because we are. You're doing a great job, everybody. And I'll let you close it out, Grant.
Yeah, yes, sir. By the way, one last plug. Check out that Glenn Jacobs event for this on Friday. Fantastic information that's going to be coming out of that. Glenn Jacobs is just an awesome, awesome human being to know and to hear his side of the perspective as well. A little Knoxville focus there for you. We'll be back tomorrow doing it big yet again. Monday through Friday now, by the way. One final plug for that, Shine. That is solely because of this audience, solely because of y'all that we were able to push this Monday through Friday now. Big, big thank you for that, because we just love doing this. We do it for free, and we are doing it for free. We'll be back tomorrow with another great edition of Real News. My name is Mr. Henry. David Shine Thompson signing off for both of us. See you tomorrow.